and welcome to the Tom Baker Show. It is great to be back on PowerTube TV for another episode, and we have got a full show for you tonight. We've got Dominic Starkweather is going to be joining us here in our first couple segments, and then we're going to have Tyler Dayton join us, and we're going to talk the latest hot topics from around the racing world. But first, Dominic Starkweather is with us. He is a 22-year-old race car driver, and he is from Cave Creek, Arizona, competing in his third season of world-class professional racing. Currently in the 2024 IMSA Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America Series. That is a long series name. I hope you don't have to write that out too often, Dominic.
Yeah, it is long. Luckily, I don't have to write it out. Never. If we do, we just write LST, so it's easy.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. Well, it's great to have you with us, and glad that you're on. You are actually sitting in Watkins Glen, New York right now.
I am.
And I'm a little jealous because that's my home area, and that is a track that I just absolutely revere. So it's cool that you're going to get to race there. Talk a little bit about what you got going on.
Yeah, we're sitting in the Airbnb right now, and we just got to Watkins today, just a couple hours ago. And This will be the third round of the North American Series. So races, 5 and 6 of the series, and halfway through, and we're second in the championship. And yeah, Watkins Glen, my favorite track. So it's awesome.
It's amazing. Now, do you guys run the boot in your series?
Yep, we do.
There you go.
We enter the boot at about 175 miles an hour. So, yeah, it is awesome.
Dear NASCAR, please run the boot, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Signed, everyone.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's go back and talk a little bit about your humble beginnings. When did you get interested in racing, and how did that happen?
Yeah, interested was when I was a kid. I started. I don't know why. I always loved like motocross and supercross now. And that's what I always wanted to do. A little different than what I'm doing. When I was 10, I got a dirt bike and kind of started doing that kind of thing. And then quickly my parents realized this is a dangerous sport.
Yeah.
And we kind of drifted away from that and got into like some kind of car restoration that's kind of off the path, and then that led to me getting a go-kart and kind of fixing that up, and that's what re-sparked the interest for me. I always, as soon as I got a dirt bike, I fell in love with speed and going fast, and but especially in Phoenix and Arizona, there's a lot of motocross tracks or trails to go ride and stuff like that, so it kind of worked out. And then when we got into the go-kart stuff, we were just having fun. We didn't really know what we were doing, and then that parlayed into track days. My dad got a little track car that he would track because he always loved racing, and one day he let me drive, and it kind of took off from there. Definitely a unconventional start in comparison to like a lot of people, but it's worked out, and it's still working out, so it's fun.
Yeah. Now, did you get out of the two-wheel stuff before you started limping?
Yeah, I did. That was the goal, right? The parents wanted me out while I could still walk. So,
and got into go-karts. Now you mentioned restoration. We love restoration stuff here on PowerTube TV, V8 TV on before us, and we've got some other shows. Give us some detail on what was going on with that.
Yeah, so we sold my dirt bike. I had a Yamaha TTR 90 or something like that, or 125 or something, and we sold that. And I don't know why I've always had this interest for El Caminos. And definitely unique for sure.
the car that wanted to be a truck.
Exactly. I call it a Trar. We bought a 1969 El Camino and me and my dad spent like 5 years restoring it from the, frame up, took every nut and bolt, powder coated the chassis, everything, replaced. It's what we put a lot of time, sweat and tears in, and I still have it, and I'll die before I sell that car. But we did that. We did a couple, Chevy trucks and a couple Camaros, all sorts of things, really.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So how long were you kind of in the resto business before you went back to driving go-karts?
It was probably 3 years. Everything I learned from like building the cars and tearing them apart, I parlayed into building this little go-kart. And, when the engine blew up, we weren't paying to bring it to a shop to rebuild it. It was, we'll go buy a little engine rebuild kit, and my dad would kind of watch over my shoulder while I did it, and we'd put it together and run it for a little bit, and then it'd blow up again, and we'd do it all over again. So
how cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get it to like stop breaking down long enough to get some good finishes, or how'd you do?
Yeah, it was, we never really raced it a ton. Again, like it wasn't conventional. It's kind of like a dirt go-kart. It's funny, I do way more like actual go-karting now than I ever did growing up before my racing career. Yeah, we're at the go-kart track once or twice a week when we're lucky. Me and a group of buddies, and that's what we use to train a lot for the real racing. So, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so from the go-karting, where did you go from there, and how old were you when you made the next step?
Yeah, I had to be around 16 or 17. My dad had a 1992 Camaro race car that we would go to all the local tracks in Arizona. And, a couple of them were 3 or 4 hours away we drive to. And he was the driver, and I was the pit crew and crew chief. And eventually one day he let me drive it, and I never turned back. That was the first day I drove, and it wasn't the last. So it was fun.
So your dad never raced again?
No, he never did. Yeah, we did some small stuff together, but nothing after that, really.
It was the day that he retired.
Yeah.
So what were some of the tracks? Were they road courses or dirt tracks?
Yeah,
road courses.
All road courses in Arizona. There's tracks like Indy Motorsports Ranch that's down in Wilcox, or like Firebird, or they call it Wild Horse Pass now. There's a couple tracks out there in Arizona Motorsports Park, and all the tracks in Arizona really that you could get to easily is where we went. So.
And what was it, endurance racing, or what exactly with a Camaro? What were you? What were you doing?
It was just like club racing for fun. And, they had like a couple different classes, and then they had the race class and stuff like that. And
gotcha.
Yeah.
So that introduced you to the road course form of racing, which is pretty much where you stayed, right?
Yeah,
since then?
Definitely.
So how long did you do that before you took the next step?
Not very long. It was we did like 3 or 4 of them, and I had a couple instructors that were, helping me out, just because, the first time we did it, I had an instructor in the car, and he's like, "Oh, I can't teach him anymore. Like he's going faster than I could." And my dad was like, "What are you talking about?"
Wow.
So there might have been something there, and so he's like, because I grew up playing sports, so there's always a coach or always someone there to help you. So he's like, "All right, we'll go find, a different racing instructor and see what he says." And that guy brought us to a racing school, and, it just kind of climbed up, and then we got into SCCA, and that's kind of where the amateur career started. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spring Mountain driving school, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that. What was your experience like there?
Yeah, it was super cool. I went there twice to the Ron Fellows driving school up in Spring Mountain, and super cool. I got to drive a cool Corvette, for the first time when I was a kid. And
wow.
And not coming from the racing world, that was an eye-opening experience. Like, what are we doing here? But it was funny. The lead instructor there, when I'm on the track driving with an instructor in front of me, and the lead instructor comes over to my dad and goes, "So how long has he been racing?" My dad's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "He just started, and he's never done like a race before." And he's like, "What do you mean?" My instructor is having a hard time keeping behind him. And I think that's probably when like we really knew, like when my dad knew that, maybe there was something here, because, there were really good instructors there, Tommy Joe Martin's, Xfinity driver. And that led to me doing an endurance race with him, which was super cool. But Cole Lofsgaard, another guy that was in Super Trofeo last year, Brandon Chappell, a lot of cool guys were out of there, and it was cool to learn from them and be relatively competitive from the start, that was cool. Just not being a young dumb kid, not really knowing what was going on, but it was fun.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. So then, as you said, you started in SCCA, and of course that's one of the oldest sanctioning bodies in the sport. What was your experience like the first year at SCCA? Because I mean, I don't know where you started at, but boy, some of the racers at SCCA are pretty serious and intense.
Yeah, it was super cool. I did a couple club races, in that other thing that I was talking about before we got into SCCA. So I had a little bit of experience, but very, very little. And so when I came into SCCA, we didn't know what to expect. My first practice session, I was first overall. First qualifying was first. The first race, I led the entire thing minus the last 2 laps, set the track record. Man. So it was probably, honestly, it was a great experience at the time, but it probably would have been better to have struggled a little bit just to, build the confidence rather than just being there and be like, well, here it is all at once, and it got harder, obviously, as we went on and went to different tracks and stuff like that. But it was a great first experience. Was it a little bit of it? What you're saying is it gave you a little false confidence because you were thinking it was easier than it actually was. Yeah, and then when we went to the other races, that were national races, this was a regional race. I was like, man, these dudes are way harder. Yeah, we still did well, but it was different, Oh, I bet. Yeah. Well, I mean, still, you did everything but win that first race. That's pretty impressive that you were able to. Did you end up second? I ended up second. We had the wheel hub went bad because it's a car that me and my dad were prepping. We didn't know anything, so the first actually before the race started, I came to the radio and said, "I think the brakes are going out." My dad's like, "What are you talking about?" It's just the nerves, and the wheel hub was going bad, so it was chattering the pads back and forth. Okay. And but yeah, it made it fun. So I can imagine. Well, that's to finish second in your first race, even in a regional, is pretty impressive, and it certainly, I guess, would set the tone. Exactly. Yeah. And so we're going to step aside here. When we come back, we're going to talk about where do you go from that first experience to get to where you are now. More with Dominic Starkweather coming up on the Tom Baker Show right after this.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show. This segment being brought to you by Ultimate QM. If you are looking to get your son or daughter into motorsports, particularly oval track racing, quarter midgets are a good, safe option for you. Ultimate QM is a winning chassis being built in Mooresville, North Carolina, right in the heart of NASCAR country. Family owned and operated. Andy Loden is a successful champion in several levels of short track racing. His son Nick, 180 quarter midget wins and a successful career that he is still in the short track late models as well. All kinds of coaching, parts, service. It is a one-stop shop for building and racing your quarter midget car. If you're looking to get into racing, UltimateQM.com. Winners win with Ultimate QM. Dominic Starkweather is our guest on the Tom Baker Show, and we are excited to have him. We've been talking about his beginnings and his first race at SCCA, now, of course, competing in the IMSA Michigan Pilot Challenge Series, the Lamborghini Super Trofeo. So you almost win your first SCCA race, and then you go to some national events and kind of get humbled, which is to be expected, right? So where do we go from here? How long did you stay in SCCA?
We were there for about two full years, 2.5 years total.
Okay.
The first full year won the U.S. Major Tours Championship, won a couple regional championships, and didn't go to the national race just because we didn't think we had a car to win, and there was a couple other things in the works, so we decided not to go. And then the next year is kind of when I started to dabble in the pro racing stuff, kind of. And we did go. We led SCCA. Kind of has 3 championships within its series: the Hoosier Super Tour, the majors, and then and then the Western Conference that we were in. And we went into the national race leading all of those, and qualified 5th. Yeah, it would have been the first time in a while that someone would have won like the kind of the Triple Crown, like all 3. And we qualified 5th nationally, and I think 2nd through 7th were 700ths apart. Like, we were all super close field. And and on the drop of the green flag, my engine blew up. So we didn't get to I didn't make it to the first corner.
Heartbreak Hotel.
Yeah, all the championships went out like that. But that led us into the pro racing stuff. So that year, 2021, or maybe the beginning or the end of 2020 or the beginning of 2021, I had the opportunity to test a couple GT4 cars. And then Celine Automotive, the manufacturer, through those tests of the GT4 cars, we had been connected with them. And I got to do a couple races kind of as me and another person from Arizona, ironically, were there like factory drivers for a couple races. And we got to do a couple tests, which was super cool. And then that just led to more opportunities. I got to do my first GT4 America race in Road America, and then my second in Watkins Glen. And then I did the national race in SCCA at Indianapolis. And then 2 weeks later, unknowingly, 2 or 3 weeks later, we had no intentions to go. There was the Indy 8-hour, which, a lot of big teams from Europe come in, a lot of factory teams come. And it was the last year GT4 cars ever ran there. And I got an opportunity probably like a week or two before the race to run at a BMW team, classic BMW. Okay. Fast Track Racing now gave me that opportunity, and ran my first. It wasn't my first pro race; would have been my 4th, but it was by far the biggest race ever been in. First pro endurance race, and I got to run with some really cool guys. JCD, Alex Vilsinger, JCD. I think he's an SRO champion, big in Lamborghini Super Trofeo as well. A really good guy. So I got to run and kind of learn from him, which was super cool. And that just led to more opportunities. In 2022, we ran with Toyota and a Toyota Supra. And then here we are this year. Then there was 2023, I guess. But
yeah, 23, you actually started with IMSA, I think, right?
I did.
And the cool thing about that is you actually podiumed in your first Lamborghini Super Trofeo race, which that had to be incredible because that's a step up.
For sure. Yeah, we were in 2022. That's when we found our first success in the pro racing. Had a couple pro podiums. We skipped a race and still ended up 4th in the championship, which was really cool. And then 2023, the plan was to do SRO GT4 again with a big Porsche team that also had a Lamborghini Super Trofeo team. So I started the series in GT4, and then I think our 3rd race or right before our 3rd race, one of their drivers for the Lamborghini fell out. So I got to fill in, and the first weekend, my first IMSA weekend, first Lamborghini Super Trofeo weekend, our 2nd race, we got 3rd, which was super cool. And yeah, probably one of the highlights in my career for sure. That first IMSA podium was super cool.
Well, and to be part of taking us forward, to be part of the Rolex 24 at Daytona in and of itself,
for sure,
had to be just incredible. What was that atmosphere like?
It was, I don't even know how to describe it. It was eye-opening, jaw-dropping, starstruck a little bit,
Yeah.
First time in a Michelin Pilot race. Again, I did the race. I showed up I knew I was showing up 4 days before the roar to the 24. So, zero really time to prep. Hadn't driven that car before. I was just coming off. I was 3 months out of shoulder surgery. So it shouldn't have been driving. Wasn't cleared by my doctor, but you get an opportunity like that. You don't turn those kind of things down because you don't know when they come again. And yeah, we did well. I got to qualify the car, qualified 13th out of 25 or 30 cars. And first time at Daytona, first time in the car. It was an awesome experience. Yeah.
I can only imagine. Okay, so now we kind of fast forward to where you're at this point.
Yep.
You're running at Watkins Glen. The week that you're there now, getting ready to run at the Glen. Give us about 30 seconds on what the rest of your year looks like.
Yeah. So this weekend at Watkins Glen, hopefully we'll do well. We're second in the championship, and then we go to Austin and Coda. And then we end our North American part of the series at Indianapolis. And then we head over to Spain and Europe. All three of Lamborghini's series, they have one in Asia, North America, and Europe. They come together for World Finals. So we'll finish our last 2 rounds of the North American series in Spain. And then all the top people will come and race against each other in World Finals.
Incredible.
Yeah.
What an opportunity.
Yeah, it's
to
super
build your
neat,
brand
super
and
cool.
get some experience in different parts of the world and in different competition. That's amazing.
Definitely.
Now, I want to hit the fact that you are very involved in the community as well, and I particularly want you to talk for a minute or two about the service trips that you've led to Mexico, building houses for the homeless, because I just think that is amazing. Give us a couple minutes on that.
Yeah, that was a couple years ago in right outside of Rocky Point in Mexico. You went down with our school actually when I was in high school. So 6 years ago, probably. We did 2 of them. I was able to lead about 30 people, and each time we went down for these groups in Mexico. You go down and basically you're in the middle of the desert. And what we would think is just the middle of the desert is, someone's plot of land that they claimed. And there would be a foundation 20 by 20 when we show up, and then we would build the house. You're with the homeowners, and which are, people that have struggled through their lives, not doing very well. And they had to qualify to get these things. I forget what they had to do to qualify, but they had to, do X amount of community service and show their improvement and stuff like that. And we would build these houses from the ground up. You're framing them, you're stuccoing them, you're putting a roof on, and we do it in like 48 hours.
That's incredible.
It was very fast. And when I say house, it's what we would consider as a shed. There's no drywall, there's no flooring, there are windows, and there is running water for one, a toilet and I think a sink. But they're what we would think of houses, and like these people, what their houses were when we would show up is, some stacked up pallets or pieces of plywood leaned against a tree, and they may have had a house before, and they just, had a rough path along the way, and that's where they ended up. But to be a part of that and to build that for someone and see their joy and excitement when we left, nothing's better than that. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, that's awesome, and it certainly expands your worldview when you
for sure
have the opportunity to
definitely again, jaw dropping you, and kind of, I don't know what the right word is, but in America we're so blessed, and to get to do what I do is so blessed. And you go to a place like that and it's like, wow, some people are still living like this, it's crazy.
It gives you a much more humbling perspective,
For
right?
sure.
It makes you appreciate,
Yeah.
what we're able to have here versus, like you said, other parts of the world. We take for granted
Definitely.
a lot of things that aren't available in other
sure.
places. And so I think that's important to create balance in your life that way, and
Definitely.
to give back. So I don't want to forget this. So I'm going to throw this question in now so we get it out of the way. Where do people follow you? How can people communicate with you, get to know you, subscribe something you have or whatever? Talk about that.
Instagram is my biggest thing I do. Instagram and Facebook. It's just my name, Dominic.Starkweather. That's where you find me. That's on all my stuff, Instagram, Twitter, Dominic.Starkweather. And this weekend I'll be posting all the practice recaps, all the race recaps. We'll do, some videos of how the races went, stuff like that. And that's where you can follow me and see all my sponsorship stuff. Beacon Building Products. Follow them.
There we
Check
go.
them out. And yeah.
So beaconbuildingproducts.com?
Beaconbuildingproducts.com. They're our
There you
title
go.
sponsor for the year. And super cool to have them on board. So
I can imagine it is, and I hope they're enjoying it.
Yeah.
They certainly picked a good driver to be with. So,
Thank you.
Okay, so now talk a little bit about, with about a minute left here, what's the goal? Where are you trying to go with all this? Is it IMSA? Do you want to race the Rolex in the big car for Penske, or what are we doing?
yeah, definitely. So that is the goal. The goal is to first win the championship this year. We're close right now. We're second, 3 points behind first. So focus on this year, but I'd love to parlay that into a long career in the WeatherTech series. Hopefully, the number 10 Acura, they'll pick me up, but or the number 63 Lamborghini, we'll see. But yeah, if I could run in the top series of IMSA and maybe try to dabble in some IndyCar stuff, that'd be amazing.
Ooh,
but we'll see.
Wow. Okay. Well,
I got to shoot big,
Hey, why not? Yeah, you got a road to Indy to think about too. So
That's it,
there's
so.
always that possibility. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of young people watching this that are going to be jealous that you get to drive a Lamborghini all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
And
I'm jealous of myself sometimes. It's crazy.
If it can happen for Dominic, it can happen for you too. You just got to put in the work to do it.
Exactly.
And Dominic, thanks for taking the time to be on with us. We definitely appreciate it. We look forward to having you back after a win.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Tom. I appreciate it. And just thanks for having me on the show.
That is Dominic Starkweather. Starkweather is where you go to follow him on social. Back with more of the show after this.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show on PowerTube TV. And we have our co-host back with us. Tyler Dayton has joined us, and we are going to talk some news and hot topics, always one of my favorite parts of the show. Good to have you back, Tyler, and want to talk a little bit about the Iowa Speedway racing weekend for NASCAR that's just gone by. Of course, Ryan Blaney getting the win. We had a decent crowd both days. Tires, a little bit of an issue. Give me your thoughts overall on the weekend that was at Iowa.
I think it was it ended up being a good weekend. I think at first people were a little skeptical of the new repave. They only repaved half the racetrack, and people were like, oh, we're going to get, one lane of racing and they're going to just run single file for 350 laps, and ended up being a pleasant surprise. I think The tires issues were a little rough in that Friday practice. Looks like to me the teams worked on it overnight and were able to get the Cup cars better. The Xfinity cars looked like they ended up struggling a lot more in the race than they had in practice or qualifying. So that was a little surprising to me. It looked like they had more catastrophic failures than they did in the Cup race, where it seemed like they knew that the tire was going down.
Yeah.
And then it would fail, where in the Xfinity race it was kind of a sudden failure and it ended up in a big wreck. So I think they'll get that worked on for next year, and we'll have some good racing again.
Yeah, I thought it was great racing despite that, to be honest. Of course, Sam Mayer getting the win in the Xfinity Series race, that was cool to see. And Blaney winning the Cup race. I thought that both races were very competitive. Lots of drama, lots of kind of comers and goers and, things that were happening. But to see, again, when you look at the racetrack, they had repaved kind of one line. And I think that had a lot to do with the tire situation too, but the drivers actually almost to a fault, although it seems like all the drivers kind of agreed that they should have repaved at least all the way up to the top, if not the entire track. They said kind of despite that, we ended up with some great racing. So it seemed like it worked out better in the racing than it did in the practice and even qualifying. But you're right, the Xfinity races, there were a couple of really hard shots that just were, as some of us would call them, Harvey Wallbangers. But again, great racing all the way around. I don't know if here's the thing. Dale Jr. made an interesting comment, and I really kind of agree. And he was, I think, pertaining to the Cup race mostly, but obviously the Xfinity race as well. Dale Jr.'s comment was, this is the least that we should expect on short tracks, right? Like to him, this was a C. He would grade this one a C. Like, this is the least we should expect. And people are talking about it like it was the best short track race of the year. Some of that I blame, or I give credit to even though the track I think was a little messed up because they only repaid part of it. It's it's progressive banking track, and it's a track where you can run a lot of different grooves. What is your thought on Dale's comment? Because personally, I agree wholeheartedly with him. I think we still got a lot of work to do to fix the short track package. We shouldn't have to make the tires to the point where they fall off in 20 laps.
Oh, I absolutely agree with what Dale said. It was for the next gen, it was a A+ race for the next gen car, but overall, in terms of where other cars have been in the past, like I said, it would be ranked as a C race. So obviously, it looks like we're making progress on the short track package, and I don't know how much of that obviously had to do with it being a new racetrack with a kind of a unique circumstance. But it looks like Goodyear. I have to applaud Goodyear for trying. Looks like they're bringing some softer tires. I would like to see some softer left side tires. They were still able to go way too long on a set of left side tires. So I think if Goodyear and NASCAR can keep working on this package and on the tires, and we will be able to have a good showing.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was great. Great to see the crowd turning out. Iowa needs to stay on the schedule going forward. They have to keep it on. They need that track. I think 100%. Okay, NBC takes over the coverage as of Iowa. And, my comment after the race right away was, one, I think they've already done a better job than Fox. They've only run one race. But then two, I'm probably going to change my mind about that the first time they decide to clip the post-race off for the 6 o'clock news.
Yeah. It's really night and day, which is sad to say. That it was that much better coverage. The camera angles that they use, the wider shots where they get more cars on screen. Yep. it just brings the racing out so much better than the close shots that you get with Fox. So it's sad that, you know, we have to wait what feels like half the season before we get to where fans are happy with the coverage. And I hope Fox can look at that as, you know, as just like constructive criticism, right?
Yeah.
And realize that they really do need to make some kind of adjustment for next season.
I agree totally. Now, you know, people were talking about Dale Jr. not being there. I'll be honest. I didn't miss Dale Jr. Not nearly as much as I thought I would. And that's no disrespect to Jr. I just thought that it seemed like Jeff Burton in particular, like there was just more breath in the booth. There wasn't so many people competing for talking. It just seemed a little less crowded. And of course, you know, they had Dale Jarrett subbing for Steve Letarte on Saturday, who just completely lost the voice. Feel sorry for Steve. It just, to me, I thought it was a great, I hope they keep this up, because I thought first out of the box was fantastic. And good post-race coverage too. Okay, Martin Truex announced his retirement, and we mentioned this on the last show, but you weren't here. So, and of course, the rumor's ongoing about replacements. So your thoughts on Truex retiring, and then who do you see replacing him in the 19 car?
Man, first, you know, I gotta say, you know, I'm happy for Martin. For sure. He had such an amazing career. That what he did in that Furniture Row Racing team was incredible. So I'm just, you know, I'm going to be sad to see him go. Of course, he's a really good race car driver.
Sure
he brings a lot of talent in. And as far as taking over, I don't know. I'm not sure who's really up next. I guess you could say, you know, maybe John Hunter, but I don't know who is next in the Toyota pipeline. Corey Heim, maybe. We've seen drivers move up from the Truck Series right into the Cup Series here recently. So,
yep.
Corey Heim is doing really good things in the Truck Series right now. You know, that's where I would be looking at if I was Joe Gibbs.
That's interesting, because there were a couple drivers you didn't mention that have been hot in the rumor mill for the 19 car. One of them being Chase Briscoe, and part of that is because Chase brings some funding, or we presume that he will, from his current SHR sponsors, but also because, again, proven winner, still fairly young by Cup driver terms these days, right? And so you kind of look at what's out there. You know, anybody that thinks that they're bringing in Noah Gragson to team him with Ty Gibbs is probably not thinking too clearly, right? Although we've seen stranger things. Rumors out there about Kyle Busch that people are trying to start. He's going to leave RCR early and go back to JGR. No, he's not. That's just not going to happen. But rumors are only good if you talk about them. So I think Briscoe definitely, maybe a Riley Herbst potentially, but we got something else to talk about regarding Herbst a little later. We'll get into the silly season what cars are left in a bit, but it feels to me like this number 19 car is probably, of all the cars that we know are available, this is probably the premier ride. And so Absolutely. You mentioned Corey Heim. It seems like 2311 wants Corey. But then again, where do you go? JGR or 2311? If you have an offer for both, or if JGR goes to Denny and says, we want the kid in the 19 car, who wins? How does Toyota settle that argument, right? So there's something to think about with Corey. But you know, you've just got a few of these guys that are out there. You mentioned John Hunter. I don't see him leaving Legacy. You know, I think he's pretty firmly entrenched there. And I think, if anything, Legacy's probably going to grow eventually. I don't think for next year, but I could see it. I could see it in the next 3 years, certainly. And there was early talk about Eric Jones, but I think that's been pretty much shut down. He's not going anywhere. Eric's going to stay where he is, I think. So when you look around at what's out there, to me, Chase Briscoe makes the most sense for JGR. And if he brings the sponsorship, that's a huge win for a team that sort of struggled in that department lately.
Yeah. I mean, they lost. I mean, that's really the big reason they lost Kyle Busch, right?
Yeah,
they were having trouble with sponsorship. So and Mars, and so if he can bring Mahindra tractors or whatever else he's going to bring with him to JGR, then I think they would be able to make something happen, and I think he would be a good ride for him, honestly.
Yeah, I do too. I think he would fit in well. I don't see anybody from their Xfinity program moving up. Although, again, you look at Chandler Smith, and the question again becomes, who does Chandler bring? I could see that happening, quite honestly, but I just don't know. Again, if it's between him and Chase brings a lot of funding and Chandler doesn't. So I do think I would throw Chandler in the hat, at least from my perspective, as somebody you take a look at. He would be the only one from their Xfinity. I don't see Sheldon moving up, and that would, so I think Chandler definitely, to me, is one that you could throw into the hat if you wanted to. The Busch thing kills me because Kyle likes to play with the media, and that when they asked him, well, would you go back? Well, I mean, sure, in theory, I'd go back. If they welcome me, I'd go back to Hendrick if I was welcome. I mean, but I'm at RCR right now, and I think people are taking that as he's looking to get out of RCR and throwing sort of the trial balloon out there. Right. I don't think that's it at all. I think he's staying at RCR. And I don't think Joe Gibbs at this point would have any interest in bringing him back. Do you?
I don't think so. There's not really, in my eyes, there's not really a reason to bring him back.
No.
Now. No. He's getting towards, the latter part of his career, I think, anyway, with Brexton racing a lot. And, there's just not that's not a good future decision for Joe Gibbs to bring him back in when he's got younger drivers that are coming up the pipeline that are showing well.
Correct. And I think Kyle is honestly, I think he and RCR will get through this rough patch that they're going through. Kyle's talked about maybe going to run a supercars race later in the year, which would be a whole lot of fun to see. And, talk of him maybe Indy 500 in the future. So I think Kyle will be okay at RCR. We'll obviously have more conversation about that, I'm sure, in weeks to come. And we're going to continue with our silly season stuff and hot topics. On the other side of this break, we'll be back with more of Tyler and the Tom Baker Show in a moment.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join Tracks nationwide on the app today.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show on PowerTube TV. We've still got Tyler Dayton with us, and we're still talking hot topics in NASCAR. For the moment, we'll talk some IndyCar in just a minute, but want to talk about Justin Haley. Justin Haley has been in the news all week for silly season, in my opinion, for absolutely no reason at all. The NASCAR fan base literally is making stuff up at this point. Everybody's talking about Justin Haley going here, going there. Justin Haley says, no, not going anywhere. In fact, I would see myself staying with Rick Ware Racing for a long time, basically because Rick Ware was the only one that would give me an opportunity last year, which shame on these other teams for not recognizing pure talent when they see it. Justin Haley has to me, proven his point by turning that program, as I predicted that he would, along with the other good people that they've got now in that organization, thanks to RFK Racing's involvement, from I don't want to call it a laughing stock, but a program that nobody would talk about wanting to drive for going forward into a viable destination, and even some talk about the 15 car being in play for one of these drivers that's kind of looking for a ride. Justin has turned that program into a top 10 to 15 program. And I don't think he gets nearly enough credit, but now everybody thinks he wants to go somewhere else. He's saying no. What are your thoughts?
I think it really shows volumes too. For one, how good of a driver Justin Haley is.
For sure.
And the partnership that Rick Ware has with RFK now. Brad Keselowski went to RFK and turned that program around, and it's bleeding over into Rick Ware Racing. So I think that it's a really good thing for the sport. We have another team that's up and coming, that's running well every week with Justin, and I think they get that 15 car up and running with another driver. I think we'll see some really good runs out of that team.
I agree.
For the future.
Could you see him winning a race in 2024? Yes or no?
Oh, 2024, I don't know. I don't think so. I think he's going to have a few more good runs this year. Yes, absolutely. Do I see him having the pace to, go up there and outrun a Hendrick car or a Gibbs car? Not right now. I don't think. I think the RFK cars are just at a point now to where they're able to compete for wins week in and week out. So I think they still have a little bit more to go before they're competing for wins. But the fact is, he's running top 10, top 15 every week, and that's huge for that organization.
See, I would agree with you with the caveat that we got some super speedway races coming up. And I do think he's in play to win at Daytona or Talladega because, right. And Ford right now is lights out on the super speedways. So I could see that happening for sure, but what a job he's done. Okay. News this week. Frankie Muniz is back in NASCAR. He is signed for 4 truck races. He's going to be driving for Rayum Brothers Racing, Nashville, Bristol, Michigan, and then, of course, Michigan is ARCA and Kansas. Talk a little bit about, of course, for those who don't know, Frankie Muniz, if you remember back in I think the 90s, right? Frankie was Malcolm in the show Malcolm in the Middle, but he's a serious racer and he's trying to develop a career in NASCAR. Your thoughts on him and Rayum and truck races?
I think this is really good for Frankie. I think he's showed in ARCA that he's got pace and he's got the skill to do it at a higher level. And I think the tracks that are coming up for Frankie with Rayum Brothers are going to be some good tracks for him to really get some good experience at. He ran that. He went for that one Xfinity race that he ran. Wasn't a great showing. Had some mechanical problems that weekend, but I think this is going to be really good for him, and this is the experience he's going to need going forward.
Yeah, I agree. And, of course, he's like, 36 or so, I think, certainly mid-30s. And he's got some quick catching up to do, right? But the Rayum trucks have improved this year. Their performance definitely they're almost to where I would put them with Tyler Young and that group. But I certainly great opportunity for Frankie with a really good bunch of people. So I hope that this goes well for him. But it should be fun, and it's a good story to follow. And his passion, his interviews are amazing. So love his passion and glad to see him back in the sport. I want to switch gears for a minute. I want to go to IndyCar because a few things. First of all, new schedule for 25 looks much like 24 with the exception of Thermal Club now being a points race. They've apparently expanded pit road to accommodate all 27 cars. So that's on the schedule, and it's earlier in the schedule. And of course, Fox Sports. Fox has now signed the IndyCar series to a multi-year TV contract. 19 total broadcasts on Fox, including their full slate of races. FS1 and FS2 will have practice and qualifying. So basically everything about IndyCar is on television, either broadcast or cable, starting in 25. Your thoughts?
I think this is one of the best decisions Roger Penske could have made for IndyCar. I know that there was probably some back and forth between, NBC and then, with Fox as well, on where he wanted to go for next year. And having all those races, the 19 races on the main Fox channel, I think that's, you're gonna get a bump in ratings just because it's on a mainstream cable channel. So I think that this is really good for IndyCar. They've been fighting the viewership battle the past few years. Indy 500 gets good numbers, and then the rest of the season it just drops off, tremendously. So I think this is what Roger Penske needs and what IndyCar needs. So I'm excited to see it play out.
I am too, to be honest. I think it's a great opportunity for IndyCar, and it will be good in the summer because there just isn't much else on Fox in terms of motorsports in the summer, so that it'll be basically main event stuff other than NHRA. But I think it's a great compliment to IndyCar, and they did a good job on that. Now, this has just happened. Okay, Arrow McLaren, which had signed Theo Pourchaire, the French driver, for the balance of the season to replace David Malukas, who they dumped when he had to miss more than 4 races because of his wrist injury. Malukas now with Meyer Shank, which I'm thrilled about. Glad to see him back in the sport. And now McLaren suddenly, when Nolan Siegel goes out and wins Le Mans in the LMP2 division, all of a sudden now Pourchaire's out, Siegel's in for a multi-year deal. What's your take on that?
I think Tony Kanaan and McLaren had a lot to, look at here. Theo, I like Theo as a driver, and he just hasn't, his stats this year haven't been fantastic. He's got 1 top 10 this year in the 5 races he's run. So, not what Arrow McLaren is looking for, stats wise. And Nolan Siegel tried his best to make it into the Indy 500, and Tony Kanaan was kind of on his shoulder the whole week, qualifying weekend and practice. So, I think that this is definitely a big deal for Arrow McLaren. I think they figured out that they have somebody that they want, and that's who they wanted, and they got him. I kind of feel bad for Theo that he's kind of just getting bounced out, but it's just how it goes.
Well, yeah, that is how it goes. The sport is now as much a big business as it is a sport, right? And I feel bad for Theo. You don't put a guy in for 4 or 5 races, then dump him for the next big thing, which is basically what Arrow McLaren did here, I feel like. Again, Nolan Siegel has had 2 starts in an IndyCar. He missed the 500, so that I don't even count that as a start. But then he filled in for Campino in the 78 when the team sat him out because of all of the flack with that whole thing, which we don't have time to get into right now. And Nolan, I thought, did a respectable job. And then, of course, he goes and wins Le Mans. But for McLaren to suddenly just, to me, this feels like ADHD here, right? And so if I'm Siegel, and I suspect that there's some family money here, and I suspect that there was a big check that changed hands that had a lot to do with this change. Just my thought, but I don't think I'm alone in sharing it. And I wish Nolan well, but to me now, McLaren is basically labeled itself as impatient. So if I'm Siegel, to me, I'm feeling a lot of pressure to go out and perform right out of the box, because if I don't and somebody else emerges, I'm out. Now, whether that's true or not, that to me, that's the mindset you go in with. I just think it was cheap, and I'm not I'm not excited about that kind of approach to doing things, but I do think they got a great young driver, and if they're patient with him, and I think whoever gets Theo Pourchaire, and hopefully someone does, you give him a year, he'll be fine. His past record and what he's done in the open wheel side of things before he came to Indy, will justify him getting a good shot. And I hope it's with a team that he can run well with, because he's a great guy and he's a very talented young racer. So I thought that was kind of crazy. Okay, couple of quick things here. Justin Bonsignor racing for Joe Gibbs in the Xfinity Series this coming weekend at Loudon in the 19s. His home track, hugely popular. Good opportunity for him to come out of the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour, where he's been a couple-time champion up into Xfinity.
I think this is a really good opportunity for Justin Bonsignor. He's shown time and time again that he knows how to get around New Hampshire 100%. Won a lot of races there. He's won a lot of races on the tour. So
yep.
I think the Xfinity car is a good place to put him. I think that's where he's going to learn the most, and it's going to be a learning curve for sure. Going from a modified to a big body stock car will be a curve, and I think he's going to do well. Actually, I think he gets a top 15 run at least.
Yeah, I'd say top 10 definitely possible there, and would look forward to seeing how he does. And I will just say a comment to close the show. We got about 30 seconds left. Congratulations, Daniel Suarez. You are now a dual citizen. He's clear, and of course, go to In-N-Out Burger and celebrate, right?
Yeah, just congrats to Daniel Suarez. It takes a lot of willpower and a lot of time to make that happen, to go through the right avenues, and I'm just really happy for him and really happy that he's a part of with us in NASCAR.
Absolutely. And with that, we bring the show to a close. Thanks to Tyler Dayton for being on, and Dominic Starkweather as well. For more exclusive content and stories, join us at steeringwheelnation.com and on our 24/7 streaming page on watchpowertubetv.com. Of course, visit tracktune.live to check out how you can sign your track or series up to hear all the PA action right through their app using your phone or device. And check out our friends at ultimateqm.com. If you're looking to get your son or daughter into quarter midget racing, winners win with Ultimate QM. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all at The Wheel Nation, and Steering Wheel Nation on LinkedIn. Until next time, I'm Tom Baker. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Like this show? Want more? Then head to watchpttv.com, the new 100% free PowerTube TV streaming network. Home of the best classic and new motorsports racing and build shows on the web.